Have you ever felt like your mom was overly involved in your life? Like you couldn't make your own decisions or form your own identity without her approval? This could be a result of enmeshment. Enmeshment can affect your sense of self and your relationships well into adulthood. Let's unpack it. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Missy, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue. We learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam, and if you already are a subscriber, you know I appreciate you so much. Also, if you are interested in my free 6-page workbook on how to deal with worthlessness and how to cultivate worthlessness, or how to cultivate worthiness, you don't want to be worthless, you don't want to feel worthless rather, then go ahead and click in the link below. So today the goal of the video is to unpack enmeshment in mother-child relationships, whether you're, son, daughter, whatever. We're going to talk about how it forms, the signs, how it affects your well-being into adulthood, how it impacts your own identity and your relationships into adulthood, and then how to heal from this. So I have a whole video on enmeshment, which I will leave right here, but enmeshment when it comes to a mother-child relationship is a whole other field, because the mother's role is to help guide their child when it comes to their emotions. They're the ones that are supposed to be nurturing and loving and help them learn how to self-regulate, emotionally regulate, is the one that kind of puts the groundwork when it comes to how to work through their emotions and how to and how they feel about themselves. Obviously a father also has its own role, but the expectations are different. We as humans expect different things from both of our parents, and it affects us in different ways. So when it comes to enmeshment with a mother, what happens is the lines are blurred between a mother and a child. Rather than being two distinct individuals, the mother starts guiding the relationship so that it becomes where the mother and the child form one kind of life, and they have to have the same goals, dreams, personalities, lives, emotions, ideas, thoughts. This leads to a loss of autonomy. Autonomy is so important for a child to have their own sense of self, and also a mother needs a sense of self too, but because there's such deep insecurities in the mother, which we'll go into further in a little bit, there forms this enmeshment between the two, which becomes one to make the mother feel more secure. And obviously as a child, you will do anything to have a relationship with your mother, and so the child just follows the lead even if it doesn't feel right. That's the only thing they know, and there may be something in the back of your mind. It's like, you may want to rebel, or maybe you feel uncomfortable, or you feel unsafe without leaning on your mom, but there's an unhealthiness about it, and deep down you know that. So why does this happen? This happens because the mother relies on the child for emotional support, an unmet emotional need, or even a sense of validation. So the reason why the mother does this is because she may feel like in her relationships, in her personal life, they are lacking. Maybe her husband isn't able to fulfill her needs, or she doesn't have the friendships that she doesn't have the support, because we as women, we need to feel like we have a tribe. We need to feel like we have support around us. We have a lot, on our shoulders. And so if we don't feel like that, there's some women where unfortunately when they don't feel like they have that, the next best thing they feel like they have is their child, and they'll place all of the burdens and responsibilities of these relationships onto their child. Another thing is that if a mother has not resolved her own childhood wounds and traumas, and has not met her own emotional needs, she will then project that onto her child and try to form the childhood that she always wanted through her child, and try to live through her child. And then also the mother will place these unrealistic expectations and goals and dreams that they couldn't have met for themselves onto the child. Enmeshment from the mother comes from a place of pure insecurity and an unhealthy coping mechanism to get their needs met. Now, here's the thing. There's a difference between enmeshment and like doing unhealthy things, like relying on the child for emotional support or trying to get the child to be exactly how they want, trying to get the child to be the idea of how they have in their mind, versus like a closeness between a mother and a child. A closeness between a mother and a child really are two people that care for one another and like maybe want to do things together and love each other, but they have their own senses of self. They have their own opinions, their own ideas. They have their, you know, they don't rely on one another. They don't this codependent and reliant on one another to thrive. And the mother will not get mad at the child if they have a different view of life or disagrees with the mother. Oftentimes in enmeshment, the mother will punish the child if they don't be the image they have, or doesn't do the things that they want, or has different ideas. That's where it becomes unhealthy. And punishment can go from silent treatment to verbal abuse to like, you know, emotionally tormenting the child. It can have all different reigns. And generally the mothers that do this are it could be a narcissistic mother, it could be just an immature mother, it could be a mother that is completely unaware of what she's doing and just has all of these deep wounds. It is not an excuse, just an understanding. It is not okay that they are doing this. It's just a further understanding of if you have a mother that's like this, of why she did those things. It's really truly unhealed wounds inside of her that she never got through or brought up or identified. This is what happens when you have unhealed wounds, as they come out in other ways. So now let's talk about a couple signs of enmeshment. One is a over-reliance on the child for emotional support. So when the mother's having a bad day at work or getting in a fight with her partner, or you know, it gets in a fight with her friend, or like, you know, is upset or something, they will then rely on the child for comfort, maybe hugs, or just have a listening ear or asking for advice. They overshare their adult problems. Here's the thing. It's normal. It's actually healthy for a parent to admit when they're having a hard time, but how much detail they share is where the line gets drawn. Your child, it's good for you to be like, hey, mommy's having a little bit of a hard day, but you know, I'm gonna be okay, I'm gonna work through it. That's like a healthy way to tell the child, so that way you're not hiding it. It's unhealthy to pretend nothing's going on. It's unhealthy to overly share. It's normal to show them how to work through discomforts in life. Like you're their guide. That's important. But having a mother that like shares in detail what's going on and uses the child as a confidant, that is unhealthy. If you are a victim of enmeshment from your mother, you will feel guilt or anxiety when you seek independence. So if you try to establish boundaries, you may feel guilt or like you're doing something bad or wrong, or you may get anxiety that something bad will happen if you go outside of your mother's you know, view of how things should be, or her opinions, or you know, you have your own mindset that terrifies you. And that's because your mother has either overtly or covertly have shown how bad and how you can't do this. Like, you know, you may have heard things like, oh, you should always listen to mommy, mommy always knows best, or I'm always here to care for you, you should never not listen to me, or we have to do things this way, otherwise something bad's gonna happen. You know, you may have heard things like that. Or maybe your mom has placed her feelings on you and said like, mommy's gonna be really upset if you do this thing, or you know, has made you feel guilt and like you're doing something wrong or bad if you go outside your mother. Another thing is lack of emotional boundaries. So there will be a lack of boundaries where, you know, your mother overly shares, and maybe you even overly share. Like, you're supposed to have boundaries. You don't have to share everything with your mom. And you may feel like you have a responsibility over comforting your mom or being there for your mom. You may feel like you need to constantly manage your mom's moods. Like, you are her therapist, you are her partner, you are the one that has to be there for her and pick her up when she's down. And not only that, when it comes to boundaries on your side, you may feel like but not only that, also on your side, your mother have made you feel like she has to be involved in all of your decisions, and if not, then there will be some sort of consequence or punishment. Like I mentioned, silent treatment, making you feel bad, making you feel guilty, making you believe something bad will happen if you don't. Another sign is that you may have difficulty forming relationships outside of your mom. So your mom's like, you know, the top, like no one can compare to her. You're always, you know, relying on her, and like no one can compare. And when you try to have other relationships, you don't feel comfortable confiding in them. It feels unsafe, it feels unfamiliar, especially if they have different opinions or views than you. That may scare you. You may feel like your mom is the only one that knows best and everyone else doesn't know any better, or is even out to get you, or is gonna steer you wrong. There's that anxiety. It's hard for you to be vulnerable or let go and trust in another person, especially in your romantic relationships. And this is because of the grip your mother has over you. Another sign is that your mom is overly involved in your personal life and your decisions. So your mom may be overly involved in like your career, your decisions with your career, what's happening with your career, your relationships, who you're dating, what's happening in the relationship, your fights, your intimacy. And I mean the talk of your intimacy, not actually involved in your intimacy. They also may be involved in your lifestyle choices, what you're wearing, what you're doing, your activity levels, your body type, how your appearance looks. All of this makes a child feel like they are incapable of making their own decisions. And the mother will excuse a lot of these things as caring about you or wanting to protect you. And so that's why a lot of people are convinced that it's okay that this is happening. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just they manipulate it and steer it that they have your best interest, and they're doing things to protect you and to make sure that you're good, when in reality it's for their best interest, not for yours. It's to make them feel better. And the last thing is there's a shared identity, and this is what we talked about before, is that there feels like you know, you are an extension of your mother's ideas, beliefs, opinions, views. If you really sit and think about it, you can't fully think about if you have your own difference of opinions that are outside of your mother's, and it may even scare you to think about having a difference of opinion that's outside of your mother's, or a difference of interest, or like you've never really thought about what you truly believe or think or feel, or maybe you have and you've tried to, but then there was that punishment again from them, or like you had their voice in your head and it scared you. Now let's go into what are the long-term effects of enmeshment. So in your childhood, you're easily impressionable, and you're going to obviously listen to your parents and believe them and trust them. But as you get older, it's normal for kids to rebel or to view things outside of their parents, and their parents, and healthy parents, encourage it. When you're enmeshed with your mom, she will discourage it. And so because of that, because you don't form your own autonomy, it then becomes a problem. You now will struggle with autonomy. You will have a really hard time making decisions without seeking the approval of your mom. And if you can't get a hold of your mom, you will either wait on it and have anxiety about the situation, or you may make a decision and then you will feel really bad, guilty, or like fear you did something bad, or you may try to talk to someone else about what's going on and you'll have a hard time listening to them, or you'll be like, I just really need to talk to my mom about it. And it can go as deep as, like, you know, the enmeshment varies in severity, but it could be as deep as like asking your mom like what you should eat that day. You feel like you need a constant approval or guidance from your mom, even when it's not needed. There's this constant feeling of second guessing yourself and feeling really insecure when it comes to trusting yourself and your ability to make your own decisions and calls, and your ability to be independent at all. Then the next biggest thing you'll notice is your difficulty in relationships. You will have a hard time forming that individuality and forming healthy romantic relationships with your partner. So there could be two extremes. You may have a really hard time getting close to your partner and trusting them, and will push people away on purpose, or it will go the opposite, where you then become overly dependent on your partner and only trusting them and what they're saying, because there's this deep hole and insecurity that you don't trust yourself and you didn't form your own autonomy. You have a really hard time forming healthy attachments. Next is you may struggle with a fear of intimacy or commitment. You may fear having other relationships outside of your mom and fear having a similar enmeshed relationship with your partner like you do with your mother, and this then can lead to avoidance of intimacy or any type of commitment. There also may be a fear of betraying your mom, or you know, having her disapproval with your partner, so you may also avoid or fear being intimate or connected with your partner. The next is low self-esteem or lack of identity, and I think we've been kind of saying this the whole video, where you will struggle with having any type of sense of identity and knowing who you really are. You, like I said, you'll probably kind of think of yourself and you'll notice that you're very connected to your mother and her views, or you are the person that your mom has kind of pushed you to be, but when it comes to yourself, you're clueless, or you don't really know truly what your likes or dislikes. You may think that you know what your likes and dislikes are, but it's really what you've been told to like and dislike, with your religious views or your perception of things in general. You may be confused about who you are, and you don't have a strong sense of self, and you don't know how to identify yourself. That is outside of your mother. And you most likely have a lot of insecurities and feel really low about yourself and bad about yourself, and struggle with a lot of confidence issues. The last thing is emotional dysregulation, which is something we had talked about earlier, is that your mom is supposed to teach you how to regulate your emotions. So your mom, because she places a lot of her emotions onto you, you learn to suppress your emotions, or you learn that you feel like you're not allowed to have emotions, or it's not about you, it's always about your mom, and you're always the rock and strong for your mom. So you don't know how to deal with any of your negative or uncomfortable emotions. And you may notice that because your mom enmeshed her emotions with your emotions, the lines are blurred about what's truly your emotion, what's someone else's emotion. And this is where it can feel like you're like what they call an empath. So you truly feel everyone's emotions around you because you had to be so closely tied to your mom's emotions, and you don't know how to separate the two of what's yours and what's others. And this can lead to emotional burnout, anxiety, and difficulty regulating your emotions, working through them. And you especially struggle in your own stressful situations. You may be good in helping other people through their stressful situations, but you really struggle when it comes to when you're in a stressful situation. Now, what can you do from here? There's two parts. There's one, healing that enmeshment, and two, learning how to have a relationship with your mother moving forward. So one of the first things is definitely become aware of the patterns, become aware of when you are seeking your mother's approval and validation. Be aware of when your mother is relying too heavily on you. Be aware of when you are just trying too hard to seek her approval, and just having those similar views and opinions. Try to think outside of them and see what feels right to you. What do you really like? It's normal to have somewhat similar views as your family. I mean, they are your family after all, you did grow up with them, but it's especially normal to have things that are just opinions and views and thoughts and ideas that are just for you. And that's what you got to kind of figure out. If you can't figure out what you like, then think about what you don't like. And that can kind of help you to start off with, because it can be really confusing and hard in the beginning to figure out what you like and what you don't like. So think about, you know, things that you just really just don't like and what doesn't feel right first. Then one by one you can kind of figure out, well, what's the opposite? What do I like? You also really want to figure out where your autonomy has been compromised. What areas do you feel like were taken away from you and you were forced to be enmeshed with your mother? Where you can start is by figuring out, where do you feel guilt? Because that's really, enmeshment a lot has to do with guilt. So where do you feel guilt? And that's probably where your problem areas are. The next is that you need to start to set boundaries. This is going to be really difficult because there is going to be guilt and you are going to feel bad and you're going to be scared, and it's going to trigger a fear response in you, and it's going to trigger you to feel, you could have a trauma response. It could be very scary because you've been one with your mom and you feel like you need your mom to feel safe, so you'll feel unsafe. But you have to set boundaries, and you have to set boundaries with yourself first. And you need to say, okay, I'm not going to ask my mom's opinion about these things, or I'm going to make my own decisions. And you're going to fail, and that's okay. Sometimes bad things are going to happen, and that's okay. That's part of life. Your mom can't protect you from everything. You can't even protect yourself from everything. You have to take risks and do things and see what happens, and that's how you truly learn in life. So set boundaries with yourself and set boundaries with your mom about what she can be involved with. Set boundaries about what you talk to her about. And it's going to be really hard because there is going to be a factor where she is going to try to punish you or be mad at you or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you know, you're not a helpless child anymore. And if your mom decides to be angry at you, then that's her decision. You don't need her to be okay. You don't have to rely on her. You're an adult. You have your own money. You have your own, you know, you can form your own relationships. Like, you don't need her to drive you around and take care of you the way she did when you were a child. So start off small and set small boundaries. And when you start to get comfortable, then set bigger boundaries. The next is you need to start learning how to take on your own emotions and figuring out what's your emotions and what's other people's emotions. And how you can do that is you start to see situations and you're like, okay, this situation has to do with the other person and it does not affect me. Kind of figure out what truly affects you and what doesn't. Everything to some degree is going to affect you. Like, for instance, if your friend loses their mom, obviously it's going to affect you. It's going to affect, you know, you're going to feel sad, especially for them, and like it's going to affect you in different ways. But is it your problem to solve? No, it's just something that they have to grieve over. So think about how things affect you and how it affects the other person, and what's their responsibility and what's your responsibility. So you need to form that emotional independence. The other thing is that you need to practice self-discovery. You need to just go out and try things. And like I mentioned before, you are going to feel guilt or shame, or you're going to feel bad, or you're going to feel anxiety. You got to work through those emotions, and you got to learn how to self-soothe and be like, hey, it's okay. I'm okay. I can do this. I trust in myself. You know, tell yourself the things that you need to hear, or the things that your mom has said, or things that you need or you wish she would have said to you, and really soothe yourself through it. And as you do those things, as you take action, and as you tell yourself and affirm these things, it's going to change your beliefs. And like I said, you're going to feel guilt, or you're going to feel bad, and you want to work through that more and more. Your brain always wants to be comfortable. You need to work through it more and more. And as you work through it more and more, your brain will start to see that you are safe. And like I said, your beliefs will change. Another thing that can really help is journaling. So journaling your journey, journaling and discovering and writing it all on paper about your relationship with your mom, what you think was unhealthy, what you think a relationship should look like, you know, discovering and writing down things that you've tried, that you liked, and things that you didn't like. And you're basically view yourself as like a child viewing the world for the first time. You're like a toddler, like trying to view and discover the world for the first time, and figuring out your own self. And you really do have to work through these emotions and feel, you know, a sadness and a grieving for yourself, because a lot was taken away from you from your mom being enmeshed with you. And there's going to be a lot of different emotions that do come up, and this is your time to work through them and process them. So the next thing we have to talk about is your relationship with your mother moving forward. So I had mentioned before, you know, you set boundaries, but your mother is most likely not going to be accepting of that, and she's gonna have a really hard time, and you have to be okay with that. You're gonna feel like a bad guy, but you have to feel like a bad guy because she is in an unhealthy place, and she may not realize what she's doing and why it's wrong, and that's not your responsibility to have her realize it. So by the grace of God, baby, you have a mom that does understand, and she realizes where she messed up, but there's other people that they're not gonna have a mom that really truly understands. So you have to openly communicate and let her know that things are changing, and you're gonna kind of find your own way, and she's gonna probably project her anxieties and all these things, but you have to set a boundary and say, you know, those are your fears, these are not mine, and I'm gonna be okay, and you gotta trust that you did a good job, and I'm gonna be okay. The other thing is, you're gonna be in charge of switching up the relationship. It's, you know, your relationship's going to be completely different. You're not going to rely on your mom the way that you used to. You're going to have to, like, you know, basically you have to like you're Siamese twins, and you're cut in between your body parts. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I'm saying. You want to turn the relationship from an enmeshed relationship where you're codependent on one another to a respectful mutual relationship where you guys have your own opinions, views, ideas. You know, some things will be similar, but there's things that are not going to be similar, and you guys want to form a mutual respect between one another, and that it's okay for you guys to be separated, and it's not a bad thing. You guys can still love each other. And the last thing is that you need to understand you need to be persistent, and you need to be patient. This is a new thing, and your mom is coming from a immature, you know, little girl mindset, and so she's going to be scared and hold on for dear life, and it's just something that she's gonna have to get used to, you being independent and you venturing on your own, and it's going to take time. So you just want to continuously be persistent and patient with it, and you want to continuously enforce your boundaries, and don't let her insecurities and her forms of trying to punish you steer you from doing what you need, because you've lived your life like this for so long, and it's been unhealthy, and it hasn't been working for you. Maybe it worked for her, but that was very selfish, and it needs to work for you now. You're an adult. You need to take, you know, life on your own, and it's really important that you do form your own kind of emotional circle and support. Not people that you overly rely on, but people that you know have your back, and that you can work through this and break that enmeshment. It's an addiction. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. Hey, I love you. It's a camera. You're confused? You're confused. No one cares.